Here.
Councilwoman Gussie.
Here.
Councilmember Manfredi.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Here. Councilmember Wade.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chapados.
Here.
Mayor Price.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Great. Any items on the regular city council agenda, council, that you'd like to review at this time? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move to item 3.2. The mayor and city councilors have here reports on meetings and or conferences attended by the council. Yes, Vice Mayor Chapados.
Thanks, Mayor. On the 4th of January, I had the pleasure of accompanying Mayor Price and Councilmember Brown and our Economic Development and Development Services Department to Verrado, which is a master plan community up in the Buckeye area. One of the things we're looking at is housing diversity and options that we have for future development. So I want to thank the planning department for setting that up. That was very informative, very enjoyable tour. Bus was a little bumpy, but see what you can do about that, Kazi. Also on the 10th, I had the pleasure of representing the City Council at the Maricopa Flood Control District Board meeting. If you've noticed any difference in the Santa Rosa Wash, the stretch between Smith Inc. and Honeycutt behind the villages, we are the test area to see if we can actually do something to eradicate the salt cedars, otherwise known as tamarisks, here in Maricopa. So far, so good. They've chopped them all down. It's a multi-step process, but be looking for future developments to see if we can get rid of those guys. And then that evening, I joined my fellow council members here for a presentation by the 6th graders at Maricopa Wells Middle School to hear what future city ideas look like. And I have to tell you that most of the groups included something to the effect of seniors aging in place. So one group called us the elderlies. We were the elders, we were the old folks, we were the seniors, but the kids had some really creative ideas, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. So I want to thank, I think Sarah set that up for us, and the folks at Maricopa Wells Middle School. So it was a great presentation. Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I too very much appreciate the Verrado experience. One of the things that I found most unique is that many of the designs had porches, and you don't see that anymore in homes. Those of us who are old enough remember porches. They were a delight when families would gather in the winter, summer times to reminisce and talk about things. So that was very pleasant. On the 8th, had occasion, along with my colleague, Councilman Wade, to attend the economic development discussion at Province with the mayor and economic development director Earnhardt and Bill Stacy, who was the CEO, general manager of ED3, discussing their respective roles. It was very enlightening. Food was great, and the beverages were great. The 10th also, I agree with the vice mayor. Those youngsters were very refreshing, very creative, and it always refreshing that elders are respected and considered. And also yesterday, I had pleasure of participating in the Martin Luther King celebration at Copper Sky.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate it. Anyone else at this time? Yes, Councilmember Wade.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Councilmember Brown, for teeing that up on the Copper Sky event for MLK yesterday. It was a great event, very well attended. From my understanding, the food was good. I'm doing the whole 30, so I had to be careful about what I ate, but it seemed to be good. The essence of the event was the number of children who were in attendance and were involved in enjoying themselves, either by dance or we had a young group of men who did quotes from Dr. King, and dancers from Maricopa High School, and some who had graduated from there. But it was just a overall fun family activity. It was a lot of great. So I want to thank everyone that attended and the staff that supported and the community that came out and participated. Next year we'll probably, we keep stating this fact, it was sold out in 48 hours. So 48 hours after we were able to put everything together, it was gone. You know, so next year we'll do something a little different, have a larger venue, and make it happen. But it was a good event. And I too attended the province economic development discussion. I thought it was really good. I thought that the mayor was able to lay out some points in pretty good timing and that there weren't a whole lot of questions at the end. But we were able to answer and make people feel comfortable about what we're doing for them as a city. And I guess there's probably going to be a write-in candidate for the mayor to be run for Congress here pretty soon, so based on what the folks said. But yes, that's all I have there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wade, appreciate it. Anyone else at this time? All right, that'll take us to the next item. Did I miss anyone? Oh, I apologize. Councilmember Manfredi.
No problem.
My
I had the opportunity to attend a bunch of the same events, including the MLK event. And I got to say, it was wonderful seeing all the kids there and the smiles on their faces and understanding why they were there. It was really important. And then last Monday, the mayor and I got to attend the legislative opening day. And we got to hear a bunch of people tell us how they'll make sure that we keep local control here in Arizona. The problem is they believe local control starts and ends at the state. So unfortunately, we'll have to keep fighting there and making sure that we keep local control where we are today. But we got to hear the governor talk a little bit about education funding. And it was very important to understand that he wants to push education funding back to where it was pre-recession levels, which is going to really help our school system. Other than that, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, Councilmember Wade.
I'm sorry, I left a couple of things off here. First of all, I want to again recognize the staff over at Copper Sky for the excellent job they did on the fishing derby. It was great, and talk about smiles on some faces. Those kids were ecstatic when they were catching fish and bringing them out. Giovanni even got one. He was ecstatic about it. And the Arts Council Poetry Night over at Honeycutt as well, the Poetry Slam. It was great. Again, well attended, over almost 100 people there, for that event. So again, Maricopa is offering so many different opportunities for different perspectives. It's very nice. It's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your reports, Council. I appreciate it. Okay, that will take us to item 3.3. The Mayor and City Council shall hear a presentation from Vision Technologies on their proposal to redesign the City of Maricopa's website. Jen.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, as we've discussed at great length, the City of Maricopa website is in need of a redesign. So we've spoken with several Arizona cities about how they go about redesigning their websites and the maintenance of their websites, and most cities are using a third party that specializes in this. So we spoke with 3 different companies that do this and talked to several of the cities that are utilizing a third party. And Vision Technology came across looking like a great fit for us for cost, customer satisfaction, and just workability of the site and what they can do for us. So Vision is here tonight. They've worked with several different cities here in the state: Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, Sedona, Buckeye, Queen Creek, Peoria, Goodyear, Yuma County, and Avondale. So Peoria recently went out for a competitive bid on this, and so we're evaluating the opportunity to piggyback onto that contract. And Vision Technologies is here tonight, so I'll introduce to you John Karambulis with Vision to show you how they go through designing and building a website.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. By the way, that was the best pronunciation of my name ever at one of these meetings, so thank you for that. What I'm going to do is take you through a little overview of how we approach website development, because what we do is we try to connect with the customer. And so I was walking in the hallway here from the parking lot. I saw the exhibit of the faces of Maricopa in the hallway here. And those are citizens, but in my world, they're customers. And what I'm going to do is take you through how we deliver a superior customer experience for the cities that we work with. So when we look at, the changing face of who we serve, it's really the residents and once again the customers. Increasingly, they're digitally driven. And what I mean by that is they're kind of thinking, I want to accomplish this task on the web first. No one wants to drive down here and figure it out. In fact, they're starting that journey on the web to figure out what's the address and what are the hours of operation for City Hall. They're also doing that increasingly on a mobile device. We're well past the tipping point of 50% mobile utilization, and that number is never going down. So increasingly, people are looking to mobile as their primary means of accessing the web, and Those visitors have slightly different behaviors even than the traditional desktop user. They're increasingly looking to consume information on their terms, and social media being probably one of the biggest forces to come into that since you last redesigned your site. So how do we integrate and take advantage of those communications channels? And then when I think about empowered, it really goes back to rising expectations. And I think this slide, I'm going to skip ahead here, pretty much sums it up. When we look at a digital customer experience, it's kind of grounded in our interactions across the web. When you think of companies like Uber, how did they do it? Because they made it extremely easy. When you look at Netflix, you look at personalization. It knows me, it knows what I like to watch, it serves up what I want. And then it's increasingly geo-based. Everything needs geospatial elements to it, especially when you're talking about a municipality or a civic environment. Where is it? How do I get there? And where is it in relation to me? Also a seamless experience. So this is the ability to process forms and transactions, much in the way that you see on Amazon or companies like PayPal. And then I also mentioned the social element earlier. We have to look at all of these different elements because this forms the resident expectation. This is the training, if you will, that every single resident of Maricopa has because they interact on the web on a daily basis. When we look at how government does in this, not so good. This is net satisfaction ratings on a 100-point scale. And you can see local government is just nosing out federal government for satisfaction for digital interactions. Probably not a gigantic surprise here, but we all can do better. So how do we do better? It's really three key elements when we partner with our over 800 cities that we partner with, many of which are here in the Valley and throughout Arizona. The first thing that we have to do is build a website. This is a consultative professional services engagement that I'm going to take you through in a little bit of detail later. The next thing that we have to do is not allow the site to degrade over time. So this isn't a set it and forget it, if you will. This isn't build it once and then watch it slowly become less effective over time. We need a methodology that includes continuous improvement. And we need the ability to monitor and then course correct based on data that we're observing from the site. But most importantly, the content is owned by staff. The content is owned throughout the departments. How do we partner with them? How do we provide them technology tools to march on this customer experience journey with us and deliver that excellent service to the customers of Maricopa? So when we talk about building a website, it's going to put the customer at the center. And one of the things that we look to do is really suss out where there's areas of opportunity to improve and expand digital services. We do need to look at content and navigation and search elements to make sure that we're offering plain language. We're getting away from departmental speak because, frankly, no one knows who issues building departments, and they don't want to know. They just want to get their task done in as quick a manner as possible. They need easy access to information, and that will improve and engender better engagement from the citizens. If I see the site as a trusted source and an easy source of information, I'm going to keep coming back to it. If it frustrates me, I'm out. I'm not coming back. We do need to address that mobile component because, once again, we're probably well over 50% and we're not going backwards. And that means optimizing it not only for mobile devices, desktop, but also tablets as well. And then how do we facilitate that technology to continue to deliver excellent customer experience? I mean, I'll ask the council if there's anything else that you would add to this list as far as a goal for the new site. I must have nailed it. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor, please.
John, I think that there's one thing that it's not just the website, it's the city in general, that we're still evolving as a city. I don't know if you noticed it coming in, but we don't have a welcoming icon. The icon that you see right now is the horse's statue at the Villages, and that's kind of got a lot of recognition, but we also need an identity visually. We spent over a year trying to develop a city seal, so we're very much conscious of what do we look like as well as what content do we share.
So an articulation of brand and a sense of place throughout the community, That is absolutely part of what I'm going to refer to as the design process that I'll walk you through in just a little bit here. So absolutely front and center, and really has been our calling card for over 20 years and serving over 800 communities that we built and maintain sites for. So thank you.
Yes, Councilor Manfredi.
Thank you so far. It's been a comprehensive proposal they put forward before us here, and I'm looking at it, and you know, you said we hit the 50% threshold. I believe we hit the 70% threshold.
Possibly.
Actually. I've seen on my own personal stuff, it's 80 and 90%, you know, when you're talking about mobile. And it really all depends, because I know that within the city, we're gonna have less mobile than we are, you know, in other places. But when you look at it, the future, when you said that San Marcos and some of your stuff here, they looked at it and knew years ago that mobile was gonna be a bigger piece. So their design was centered on making sure mobile was in there. I look at it and I see the audio navigation, so how easily we say, Alexa, tell me this, and whatever it is. So we need to make sure that we understand that the future is not only mobile, the future is the voice control. So our website has to have the ability to integrate easily. And I don't know where that comes from or how to do it. Of course, that's you guys would know that.
We're doing Alexa skills currently with
Okay.
the city of Cary, North Carolina.
Okay.
So if you're within city limits, you can say, Alexa, what's happening in the city tonight? And it will read you information off the city calendar.
Perfect. And that's something that I'd like to see happen, because the voice control is the future away from the mobile. And that will happen over the next couple of years.
And that's a great point to the continuous improvement that we talked about. We don't know what the next thing is. We can
Right.
place decent bets on it. One of the things I know that's a have-to these days is ADA compliance and accessibility.
Right.
So that is front and center with how we design sites. They can't just be visually stunning. They have to conform to federal law as well. So we're making sure that we walk those lines for our customers.
Right. And any new website that's being built today, you know, it used to be you built it for the web and then you hoped it was mobile compatible, right? So you looked at it, you built it for the web and you hoped it worked on the phone. Now it has to be almost built for the phone, and then really who cares if it works for the web? Not who cares, but it has to work less for the web because it's really at a 70-30, 80-20 to web now these days. So it has to be built for this guy right here, because this is how people are running their lives. It's the remote control of our lives, and so.
And not to mention that it might actually prove to be a divide within the community. A lot of people don't even have computers anymore because that is their primary and maybe sole way of accessing the internet. Next question.
Council, what else? You want to hit it this time? Anything? Okay. Proceed.
So how do we do this? How do we accomplish these goals? I'm going to highlight 4 key areas that are unique to our process to give you a flavor for how we're going to connect with the customer. The first part is research. When we do this, we need to start conversations with people that we've never met. And we need to do that underpinned by data. So I'm showing you a couple pieces of analytic data that we collect before we even contemplate how we design the site. Things like analytic reviews, Google Analytics, if you're familiar with it, shows me where people are interacting with the site, what the greatest hits are, if you will, because then I can feature those more prominently in the eventual design of the site. I can also do that with a technology called heat maps that I would run on your current site to see where eyes and clicks are going on the site. Then I'm going to mix in human elements and consultation with community surveys and stakeholder surveys here. We want to make sure that we have really a common baseline of information that we can draw off of. Because the next phase of this, in addition to the user testing that we're going to perform, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a second, is what we do with that information. So we use what we call an NNG certified UX consultant. We have 2 of which on staff that we have certified. They take this data and they use that data to create a more usable site, unique to the visitors and indeed the customers of Maricopa. This really, if you will, is the secret sauce of our company. We don't start with templates. We build purpose-built sites for each community that we work with, based on that data that we collected in the first stage. And the result of that is just a better blueprint, if you will, to start the site development process This culminates in a usability report. This is about 6 to 7 weeks into the process. We're going to report back our findings and our recommendations, and we're also going to show you that custom wireframe that we're recommending based on that data and the analysis we do on that data. This is good because it shows you how the decisions were made, what data underlie the decisions, and then also it's a great alignment because it's going to show the goals that the city had, how the data supports those goals, and then it becomes that alignment vector going forward because we don't want it to be just about opinions, we want it to be based in data and research as well. So this is a good example of this, and the heat mapping technology I described is on the left, and the technology called click mapping is on the right. These show areas of visual fixation on certain pages. This is not a setup, but this happens to be a council page for one of our customers, Torrance, California. And if you look at this, you're going to see that the bottom 4 or 5 council members just don't seem to get a lot of attention because they are down. This is a very long scroll. They're not getting that area. So this is an opportunity to say, how do we make this more usable for the customer? How do we get that council member information front and center? I was told this is going to work. So this is a fun little game we like to play. This is a usability video that we do on a customer site. And the task here is how to pay a parking ticket. So I'm going to click the button. You tell me when you know when you can pay a parking
It
ticket.
should not be capitalized. Okay, so I can pay it by check, but to who? So I'm not quite sure. It says, you know, on the front of parking citations are instructions on how to pay the parking penalty. So I don't even know why I would go online because it doesn't even look like
These are your customers.
I can pay online and I actually have to pay by check or money order.
Anybody get it yet?
Which for me is frustrating because I don't use
It's on the
checks
left-hand
anymore.
side,
I'm
hidden in that
frustrated
gray
with
navigational
online.
area.
So I guess
But instead, I got a history of why we can issue parking tickets, which I pretty much get if I'm on the website to pay it. So we can do better. And part of this process is to figure out these areas of opportunity. Oh. Did you? Maybe advance me back. The goal of this is to make sure that the data conforms with the intuition and make sure that we get it right. So Tom, one of our customers in Louisiana, Calcasieu Parish, really found this process very valuable because it made sure that there was that alignment between what staff had done in the past and some of the new opportunities afforded by the variation in customer behavior on the site. And then I want to take you into design. And this goes to the Vice Mayor's question about how do we articulate brand? How do we get that sense of place for Maricopa? So a couple examples here, and this is a visualization of parts of the process that we do to collaborate with staff to really bring out those elements for Maricopa. You're seeing the wireframe here. That's kind of a logical blueprint, if you will, of how the elements, the interactive elements of the site will be laid out. In the middle there, you're seeing a mood board. This is how you get those colors, how do you get that imagery, how you convey those different elements of the community. And we iterate on these using both technology and, of course, consultation until we have that right. So it's not uncommon for council to be apprised of this process. You will see these deliverables. We interact with a collaborative tool and a technology that we use to make sure that we annotate, get the notes right, and really make sure that we have it before we go into programming. This is the part of the project that no one talks about. If I built you something visually stunning, and I had dated, incorrect, or really technology that looks like that parking ticket example I just gave you, it's not going to meet these customer needs. So before we go any further, which do you like better, left or right? I'm assuming that's right, Mayor, right?
My right.
Thank you. You like it because you're trained to like it. It's shorter. It has big call to action buttons. The contact information is highlighted. I'm already trained. I already know how to use all of this. And once again, we're getting rid of the history lesson and the codes involved in why we can issue alarm permits. This actual customer content that we went from left to right doing what we call content strategy. The worst part about the left is that you can't even get your alarm permit renewed. You just get a history lesson of why we can issue one. So if I'm a customer, I'm not coming back. I'm going to say this wasted my time. So what we want to do is train staff, people that have deep subject matter expertise, but maybe were never trained on how to write for the web or write for customers, how to go from left to right here, how to use the technology to its fullest advantage, because the real game is played within the interior pages of the site. The content that your subject matter experts add to the site, it's for a customer. It's to serve a customer. It's to complete a transaction or a task, and it needs to be written with that mentality.
To that end, I absolutely see where you're going here, but you were just talking about servicing the customer, the client, and clearly there's clients of all different measures, right? I think we've hit the common denominator here that, like you said, you're trained to see this one on the right, and big call to action buttons, it's colorful, it's shorter. I mean, it speaks to us in a literary term. However, there are those that like to see that stuff on the left if they so choose to say, but what's the next step? Where do they derive this? Do you put something in here? I've seen certain websites that will then attach what you're looking at the left in a small button or a link that says, see the code here, and then you can click on it or hover over it and it pulls it up in a separate little window and you can read through it. And if I said, if I wanted to pull the whole section, I can go to section 2.4 and go to the search button and pull up the whole code. Is that something that you would do as well?
Absolutely, but I want to go back to Councilmember Manfredi's observation earlier. If I give voluminous content, I'm no longer serving this customer anymore.
Right, and I think the point there, though, is what I was just saying, is that you're absolutely right. That's not intended. It's hidden in this part on the right-hand side because you hover over it and you say, see this if you want to, or you click to it. But you don't have to see it. If all I want to do is mail in my payment and be done in 30 seconds, I'm done. But if I want to read the code and understand how I got that ticket in the first place before I mail in that payment, in case I was thinking about challenging it, wouldn't that be a good place to quickly reference it?
Absolutely, and you can also think about it as what we call different customer journeys. Maybe a journey is to research code, and maybe another journey is to just pay a ticket.
Precisely.
So you have different methodologies between what we call browsing behavior and searching behavior, and we contemplate that as we do collaborative site development with all of our clients. So that is part of the content strategy methodology as well.
Thank you.
So what does this do? I think Abbott here summarizes it better than I can. It really is about everything that you write, you're writing for someone. And that someone wants to do something, and you need to intuit what that is and deliver on that promise. So when we talk about content strategy, which is part of what we're including in what we propose, we're doing a project within a project, if you will. We're going to design something beautiful that conveys the city brand, but if we don't work on the words, we're not going to get there from a customer experience standpoint. The last I think I've hit on a little bit, but I wanted to go into a little more depth on how do we achieve mobile optimization. We have a still here. I don't know if we're going to be able to show some of the local examples. Did we get that working? Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. When we develop sites, we do what we call responsive design. And what that does is it knows how much real estate it has on the screen of the device that's reading it, and it optimizes the view of the site for an image. So here is Peoria's desktop. This is not an app. It's made to look like an app. But this is maintained through the exact same platform. This is all staff maintainable. And this is the resolution when you go down to what we call a mobile phone view. Can you expand it out slightly horizontally, please? So you're going to see it kind of guess how much real estate it has. This is a tablet view. And then as you go to full screen, it's going to give you that laptop or the desktop view as well. This is all automatically done in the system. So when we talk about mobile, we're hitting 5 different form factors right now automatically through the system. And we will be able to adjust incrementally over time to different browsers and different form factors as they become available. Thank you very much. They have to get me back to the presentation. So you see an example. This is part of that customer experience, that research We're going to do a analytic project for the desktop, and we're also going to look at the mobile behavior as well, because they are different. What you're going to notice in Mendocino's site is there's 7 key buttons that were informed by that data collection, but in the mobile view, it's 16. It's much more task-oriented. And I would submit to you, Mr. Mayor, that some of the code behavior, some of that research is probably not going to be done on the mobile device.
Right. Makes
So we
sense.
need to contemplate both different classes of users and design independently, but still maintain it under the same platform.
Sure.
We also put in specific technology that can be utilized to optimize interior page views as well. What you're seeing here is something called Mobile Designer, which is drag and drop reprogramming of mobile site resolution of interior pages. So, for example, on the desktop view, the automatic responsive design might put a giant picture of a courthouse at the top. But what's really important to that mobile user is the contact information. So I can just drag and drop on an ad hoc basis, if I choose, and promote the content that is most likely to be consumed by that mobile user. Doesn't change anything in the programming. It's just an easy way to give the customer, especially in this case the mobile customer, exactly what they're looking for on that page. The bottom line here, we've already blown away this assumption. We believe we're at 70. That's a high number in my experience, but we do have a couple customers that are bridging that. 50% is becoming kind of the national tipping point of usage. I believe that's just going up. And you need tools and insight to be able to address that growing constituency, and that's why we do that mobile-first design with the corresponding technology to maintain it over time. The results of how we partner with our clients, the cities and counties that we serve, we will measure performance of our development teams. So we do it once after graphic design and once at site launch, and then every year thereafter. I'm proud to report that after 3 years, we're averaging 9 out of 10 satisfaction across our base of customers. We get escalations. They go right to the executive team when you get anything lower than a 7 on that scale. And then I become your case worker to remediate it. I can't fix a lot of stuff, but I can get people that can fix stuff really fast. We take this very seriously. My boss, the CEO, is absolutely fixated on measuring customer satisfaction and remediating any problems that arise in a really expeditious manner.
Vice Mayor?
John, what are some of the things that are keeping you from a 10?
I'm sorry?
What are some of the things that keep you from getting a 10?
One of the things I think we've had is if a project manager gets rotated off of a project, sometimes that restart, there's some kind of connection and bond built between the project teams, and it just doesn't work out from an alignment standpoint, so we have to kind of smooth that back over. It really is a collaborative process that we work through. The respective teams get in a rhythm, and sometimes if that rhythm breaks with either a staff change out or one of our project managers rotates off the project for whatever reason, that can cause a disconnect. And that just means that we have to apply extra attention to right that ship.
In terms of internal management and oversight of web design, web content, do you recommend redundancy from an internal staffing perspective so it's not just one person becomes the pinch point on control, or how do you approach that aspect of it?
Well, the underpinning of the CMS itself, the content management system, is it's built with both casual and power users in mind. It's designed to broadly syndicate work throughout the city to the individual subject matter experts that have the knowledge in their heads to be able to have them writing directly on the web. We don't want to create choke points within it. We want people within guardrails and with approvals to be able to directly add content. If you can type me an email of what you should add to the site, you can just type it directly into the CMS and publish it. It can be still reviewed at many different levels, but there's no reason that you should create those choke points within it. It's designed to have broad syndication of work. I'm working with the city of San Jose developing their site right now. They have 375 content contributors using the site right now. So we couldn't choke that down to 1 or 2 people. It would just inundate them. And then, of course, we do build beautiful sites.
Can I ask you another question as it pertains to that? I mean, you kind of made an off-the-cuff statement, not disputing that at all, but, you know, while I appreciate the ability to go and look at, you what are the hits, what are the things that the stakeholders want, the users. I mean, that's exactly who we build it for, but how do you differentiate yourself, i.e. how do we differentiate ourselves from the other cities that, right here in Arizona, even in the Phoenix metro area, that are going to be designed under a similar platform? Because we want to be user-friendly, we want to be all that, but at the same time, we also want to be different and not look exactly the same as 6 other cities.
So early in the presentation, just for the sake of time, I skipped over a slide that's in your packet. Go look at the sites. None of those look the same. They're all ascribing to this custom process that we've gone through. That is really how that UX process, how that customer experience process really guarantees that you're going to get something that's uniquely built for your community. We combine our award-winning design on top of that, and you're getting something that's essentially bespoke, but completely maintainable. What's good about that is now you also have a user community behind it because you're all using the same platform. So what's great about working with the municipal government is it's not really competitive in that way. So people can share ideas, people can attack the same problems, and they can use the same system to address it. So maybe Avondale is going to have something really innovative that they can use. You can operationalize the same thing on your platform as well. So it's our job to come up with something unique for our client. That's why we're going to do the collaborative process. That's why we're going to measure that satisfaction. You will be satisfied. You will have a checkpoint in there before we move on. But then at the end of the day, the goal is to create a community here in the Valley and be able to draw from other people's good ideas as we continually improve the site.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilwoman Gussie.
You had mentioned that there are some layers of security in order approval layers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking about what happened in Hawaii just recently. and if they would have had an opportunity, either cities or municipalities or the state would have had an opportunity to send out an email or change something directly on their site, that would have prevented a lot of grief that people had to wait 30-some minutes, an hour. I don't know how long they waited to get that final. Is this something that we will have control? The city has control. If they wanted to send a message out like this, they'd be able to do it on their web page?
So first off, we're not launching any missiles at this site. Not yet. Kind of a different, I'm going to attack that question from 2 different angles. One is we have a pretty robust 6-level approval cycle that can be really engineered based on individual roles and permissions in the system to make sure that the proper approvals are received. But then you have power users in the system that will have specific access, so you can post something very quickly through social media. You can put an emergency banner on the site. We have the privilege to host a lot of customers in Texas, Florida, and California this year. 2017 was a really extraordinary year for disasters. Our sites were the primary vehicle. When the governor's speaking in Florida, he's saying, go to the county website. That is the only source of true information. So we have different technologies that we can employ to get that critical information out, because nobody's paying a parking ticket when Irma's coming up the peninsula of Florida. So you need to be able to quickly pivot the site to be an emergency response vehicle in this case. And staff will have the keys to be able to even flip out the homepage and also put an important or an emergency scroll at the top of it, just a couple of clicks in the system. But we're going to be able to restrict that from a permission basis, however you choose. So trusted staff members with, I'm sure, multiple redundancies will have the ability to swap out the homepage at a moment's notice.
Yes, Councilor Wade.
And just based on the conversation you just had, thank you, a very nice presentation, by the way, I appreciate it. Nice cities that you go to as well. But just based on that, how often is the system then upgraded to make sure it stays abreast of current changes or current emergency requirements and something like that that was to take place?
So every month we do releases, and then for what we call customer-facing releases, we do that once a quarter with corresponding webinar training. Most of which feedback from our customers was we don't want to sit through a training every single month. We want to do it 4 times a year. But we're constantly iterating the site both for security and for browser and accessibility compatibility as well throughout the back end of the system. So when you look at the ability to, our staff is working constantly on upgrading it. Last year, we renovated as big rock items our calendar, our pages, and our news components within the system. And the next big step for our April release will be recreating all the forms functionality as well. That's all included in our core subscription service. So we're constantly iterating the platform to enhance functionality and usability on the site while we're doing all the back-end compatibility as well.
So do we get a dedicated individual or core or group that is paying attention to ours, or somebody that we've talked to on a regular basis, someone that we have a relationship with?
Yeah, so that is my client success organization. They're responsible for all of our customers' ongoing support. We also have a full tech support staff as well. So tech support is more of a why is it doing this? And client success is how do I get it to do this? So it's more goal-based, it's more consultative. Once a year within our proposal, we actually sit down and do an analytic deep dive on the site, come back with recommendations, usually in the form of a presentation, that we can say, here's what has happened in the last year, that's the continuous improvement that we talked about, and here's what we would recommend. And then our customers go through those recommendations and decide which ones they want to act upon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
So one of the things I was looking through as we get to the cost of this, and one of the council members had brought this up, is, while many things, because of the constant change of technology, one of the things that is being done today, especially in certain platforms, my wife is a professional photographer, and in that process, we had to plan and budget for that ever-present, every 2 years, Adobe rolls out its new suite of all things, and it's so great, but at the same time, it costs you $2,500, and then people wonder why pictures cost so much. But at the end of the day, how does this site differ or is similar to that? I mean, clearly, you talked about the compatibility, you talked about, things changing and rolling out those updates, but do you reach a point where, it breaks and you have to tear it down and start over again on a new platform? So I'm looking at this based on the price outlook here, that it's one thing to set it up and go through, having on-site people and having people in customer service and paying those salaries, but at the same time building the site. It's another to pay for the subscription, which keeps you up to date as you change things on the back end and as technology changes. But are we going to have to redo this again entirely with an upfront cost again in 3 years?
So part of our proposal includes something called a site improvement credit that you accrue over the 5-year arc of the contract. That credit will equate to a graphic redesign of the site after 5 years. So if you want to do that set it and forget it, which we don't recommend, but you can, you already have that accrued at the end of the 5-year period to do a graphic redesign of the site. Most of our customers, and we were sort of dragged into this by our customer base, like we don't want to wait that long. We want the insight, we want the actual recommendations, and then we want the budget to be able to act upon these changes incrementally over time. So the site improvement credits can be used flexibly as you accrue them to meet emerging challenges. Now the back end of the system through our VLive service, that is upgraded as part of that core service. You'll never have the big step Adobe upgrade like you talked about. It's a software as a service platform. There's only one platform, every customer's on it, and we're constantly updating it for our entire customer base. But what you're talking about is the front end of the site, the look and feel of it. So you have those site improvement credits that could get you that graphic redesign, but you could peel those off as you accrue them and use them flexibly to meet emerging challenges. Or something like, hey, the Performing Arts Center, we really want to break that off into a sub-site. That's not part of the current site. Maybe that's something you can spend it on. Or a lot of our customers have looked at training and enabling staff on ADA and accessibility standards because of the emerging federal regulation of that came out this year to say, look, we really need to pay attention to ADA standards on the site. So it's just a currency that you accrue that you can spend flexibly over time. So to answer your question, it's the back end of the system, that's part of the core subscription service. It's always up to date because there's only one system. The front end of the site, that's really based on your goals, your needs, and the staff's desire to really make incremental changes or then save them up for kind of bigger rock changes whenever the need arises.
So let me ask a follow-on question of that. You also said something in that explanation about, you might want to do a separate site, altogether. One of the things that I know that our staff has done based on certain events or, different facilities that we have here, because of the current site, it was so difficult to operate and to utilize and to build off of, and so it was just easier to go create a whole separate page and maybe link it over, these types of things. What is the ability to create these events? And, again, you're authorizing multiple users, but, a user wants to take a subsection department and kind of go through and list all the things that they're doing, and it kind of has a standalone feel to it, but it's still part of the site. Can they do that? How does that work?
So to get a little bit technical here, it goes back to that wireframe that we talked about. When we build off of that wireframe, that becomes kind of the master template for that site. Interior pages are completely free to be generated through the CMS itself by staff. That's the way the system's designed. If we wanted to break that wireframe and come up with a completely different design for something like a performing arts center, where I want to see seating maps and buy tickets and see where I park, that would be a separate customer experience. That wireframe would be purpose-built for that specific application, and that would be an example of where we would depart from what the system can achieve and what we would have to program uniquely for you. So as long as it lives within the wireframe that we create for the city, all the interior pages are generated and maintained through the system. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. I also had another question, and this sounds a little maybe simplistic based on all the fun technology we've been talking about tonight, but is it still, while it's always about the ease of administration, is it still as important when you're designing a site today that you have that one-click feature, right? I mean, it used to be where when you entered a website, it was how many clicks does it take me to get to the information I need? Is that still a key component of what you look at? I mean, clearly, I know you're talking about going back to the stakeholders, but is that still as big a deal, or how does that work?
Yeah, you're talking about something called like the three-click rule.
Right.
So that's the theory that everything should be accessible within 3 clicks. Well, when you think of the breadth of the sites that we operate, you can cheat to get there, but then you're getting these gigantic horizontal menus that don't perform on mobile devices whatsoever.
Correct.
The current governance there and the usability studies support, it needs to be intuitive and discoverable navigation. People are willing to go 3, 4, 5 steps in as long as it's an intuitive path that they can navigate through. And if you really think about how those menus would present on a mobile device when they're this wide, it's just not going to work on my phone. So 3-click has kind of been largely discredited, especially with these types of sites, and it more ascribes to that intuitive and discoverable navigation. And you'll see that as you interact through enterprise websites as well. It really doesn't even hold anymore.
Interesting. And then my last question is again, maybe overly simplistic here, but something that we've not been able to do well, I think, on our current site, which is a simple search. The searchability of diving into that and taking you straight to what you want. I'm looking for city code section 3. Does it just pull up, or does it pull up, every city code ever made here? And it's just too much information.
So what is city code section 3 here?
There you go.
Do we know?
Yeah.
That's the key. No one knows.
Yeah.
So I like to do what we call, we have a product that's going to be part of this called Vision Search, where I can put in plain language synonyms, common search terms, in the manner of speaking that your customers are going to look for it. So they're able to find the difference between, our classic one is trash, rubbish, solid waste, right? Any one of those 3 terms could be used. Also recycling gets thrown in there, but all I want to know is when my trash day is. Right. So I can put all of those synonyms to cross-link those searches and rationalize that customer experience, because it could be within any of those key terms that I'm searching on, but I still want to get to the article of when my trash day is in my district.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yep, it does. Appreciate it. Vice Mayor.
So as a follow-up to that, we're kind of unique in still being a fairly young city, but we don't have any city-owned utilities. So the answers to those questions would be on someone else's website. How does that work in terms of providing safe links?
The same manner. So I think that is even more incumbent on us to rationalize that experience and make it seamless for the customer, because no one cares what services the city is actually providing through departments, whether they're contracted out or not. Once again, they just want to know when their trash day is and who's picking up their trash. So Vision Search would give you the opportunity to make that a seamless experience for the customer. And then we can integrate third-party applications or sites in as appropriate with a couple different technologies, mostly, which is a kind of a nice wrapper called an iframe, to bring those third-party sites into the system so they have, if you will, a one-stop shop to get the information that they're seeking.
Okay, council, any other questions, concerns at this time? All right. Thank you very much for the information. We appreciate it. And that council will take us to item 3.4. The mayor and city council shall hear a presentation from Ms. Rebecca Rothenberg, updating the city on the status of the housing plan. Her company, Atria Planning LLC, is a California corporation located in San Diego, was awarded the contract for the housing plan with the amended contract CON 17-34. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. You may remember we took on, as an extension to the housing needs assessment last year, we took on a housing plan that we started back in August. Tonight, our consultant, Rebecca Rothenberg, is here to just give you a quick update on that. And seeing as we only have 5 minutes left, she's going to be quick. So then we're happy to answer any questions. So, Rebecca?
You have more than 5, but yeah, thank you.
Well, actually, this was I didn't need to come, but since I'm here for a meeting, I figured I'd come to City Council and give an update on where we are, and we are actually at a critical point, so it's good timing.
Perfect.
If I can figure out the buttons. Oh. So I've presented probably twice, maybe 3 times before on the housing needs assessment. I've included that in the process. The ultimate goal, which we should have at the end of May, early June, is the housing plan. So the first half of the housing plan will be the needs assessment that's already been completed, and then the second half would be the vision, goals, strategies, outcome of community engagement. And then we have 2 additional elements that are maybe unique for a housing plan. It's a little bit above and beyond. We're going to have a web-based portal, data portal, that will be open to the public, where residents and community groups can review demographics, economic indicators, housing indicators, look at different geographies, and it'll be a pretty interesting tool, and that should be useful for about 3 years. And then we're also doing a large community meeting with some design elements. We have a firm that's going to be doing some renderings and schematics to get people excited about the new types of housing that can be introduced in the city. Quick recap of the housing needs. We've seen this before. To break it down, Maricopa only has 1 housing type, which is the single-family home, and that is unusual for the region. Most cities of this size have a bit more diversity. This is a good opportunity, if we are to introduce new housing types, to do it in such a way that we can build walkable, mixed-use areas with some retail and restaurants. And we can also, at this time, integrate with economic development, transportation planning, schools. And so we're now at that point where the housing plan can come together with some of the other initiatives. Thus far, so we started in, I want to say, October. We've had 4 meetings, 3 work sessions with the Housing Committee. We've developed a vision statement, goals, draft strategies, and we're now on the action items. So this is a critical juncture where in the next couple months we'll have a draft plan and we'll be ready for the large community meeting. But here's our vision statement. I'll read through this because I think it took a lot of work from our group. Maricopa will provide housing that meets the needs of current and future residents while promoting sustainability, economic growth, and attractive community-oriented neighborhoods. And I know that seems simple, but we probably had 20 variations. Here are our goals. I won't read them verbatim, and we've been through a lot of these before, so I'll point out some of the things that are are interesting and unique for this city. The goal of making sure that residents of all ages and walks of life can live here, that when kids become young adults, they can stay. When older adults become seniors, they can stay. So providing all of those housing types to keep people here. Also tying into the general plan, building housing that complements the idea that we want Maricopa to be an exciting, interesting place that can attract employers, that can attract new shopping, that can attract new residents and potentially new tech or high-growth industry residents. And that also, at the same time, we can retain a sense of community and the sense of history that's currently here. Our last work session, we went through a lot of different strategies or ways to implement these goals. These are some of the ideas that really popped up. Part of it was coming up with a branding or marketing campaign or a sense of identity for Maricopa. And I know that came up in the last presentation, but that is one of the strategies for the housing plan and ultimately the integration of the housing plan with other planning efforts. And this is a list of our draft strategies. We're still working through this, but the idea is that we need to start looking at specific places and specific design elements, and then also reaching out to the developer community. And we're not waiting on this. Well, I should say, Kazi's not waiting on this. He's been very proactive in talking to the state and talking to developers, but to keep that going, keep that momentum going, and then also soliciting more interest from developers and organizations in real estate and housing development. So the next step will be the draft housing plan and a pretty large community meeting scheduled sometime in April. I'll be present at the Salsa Festival to get people excited about that, and there'll be some public service announcements about it. But yeah, so we're moving forward.
Awesome. Council, any questions at this time? Yes, Councilman Wade.
You said sometime in April. We kind of fine-tuned that a little bit, the second week, the third.
I don't know yet. I'm available all of April, so it will be hopefully early. We will definitely have the design work and the materials ready at the end of March, so it would just be based on folks scheduling.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Questions? All right. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, that concludes our work session for this evening. We are just at the 7 o'clock hour, so let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene with the regular session. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, please? Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.